Hey guys, it's Bella. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing another Mystery Monday for you guys, and I'm just going to dive straight into it today. Today we're going to be talking about the disappearance of Tara Calico. She was born on the 28th of February in 1969 to Patty and David Calico, but her parents divorced not long afterwards, and Patty ended up marrying a man named David Doel and taking his last name. She lived with her mother and her stepfather in Belen in New Mexico, and she mysteriously disappeared on the 20th of September in 1988, right near her house when she was only 19 years old. She graduated from Belen High School and she was enrolled as a sophomore at the University of New Mexico, which was in Valencia. And she was just like a super hardworking girl. It really showed off in her grades. She had a great grade point average, and she was planning on going on to study psychology. She was also super active. She loved running, she loved cycling, she was very neat, very organized, and she loved to plan out her days as much as possible. And normally her days would start off almost every single day with an almost 60-kilometer bike ride, which is huge. It took her about 4 to 5 hours. On the morning of the 20th, she had her day planned out as usual. She was going to go on her bike ride, then she was going to meet her boyfriend for tennis at 12:30. After that, she was going to go to class at 4 p.m. But she was running a little bit late that day. She didn't manage to get out for her bike ride until about 9:30 in the morning. So she told her mom, like, if I'm not home by 12, then can you come and pick me up? Because her mum actually knew the route she would take extremely well, because her mum used to go with her on her bike rides up to a certain point until she felt that they had somebody who was stalking them and following them. So she got freaked out. She stopped going. She wanted Tara to bring pepper spray with her, but Tara thought she was just being overprotective. Anyway, she left at about 9:30 for her bike ride. Her bike tire was actually flat, so she took her mum's, which was a neon pink Huffy mountain bike, which had yellow cables, and she left her house on Brugg Street and then headed towards Highway 47, which is where she spent the majority of her ride. It got to about 12 p.m. and she wasn't home, so Patty got her stuff ready. She left at about 12:05 to go and find her. She drove down the route, drove the whole length of Highway 47, but she didn't see any signs of Tara. Obviously, she was starting to get a little bit worried because of the experience that she had had with the stalker that made her completely stop riding that route altogether. And she was trying not to stress. She did another lap of the route and couldn't see her anywhere, so she called the police. Now, the police started off by searching the route of her ride for any clues as to where she could be. They searched the surrounding areas of her ride. They also interviewed a few witnesses, none of which said to have seen anything out of the ordinary. They said they saw Tara riding her bike, but that's it. They just saw her riding her bike. There were also a few more witnesses who said that they saw a dirty white or a light grey 1953 Ford pickup, which had like a handmade shell, which is one of those, you know, where it has the ute, except it's got like the big shell, I guess, over the back of the ute. And they said that they saw this vehicle following her. The witnesses also said that Tara didn't really seem to notice that this was even going on because she had her headphones in. She was listening to her Boston cassette tape on her Sony Walkman. The last time a witness saw her was at 11:45 a.m. in Valencia County, which was about 2 miles away from her home. The next day, her mum went and had another look around the route just to see if maybe she missed anything, look for any further clues, which is when about 3 miles away from her home, she found her Boston cassette tape, and she also saw skid marks and bike tracks in that area, which she thought meant that there must have been some sort of struggle. Now, despite this, there were a few sightings of her, or reported sightings of her, in the southern area of the United States in 1988 and 1989, but none of them were ever confirmed, and for the next 9 months the case grew cold, and that was pretty much it. Now, on the 15th of June in 1989, a woman found a Polaroid photo in a parking lot of Port St. Joe's, which is in Florida. I'll put that Polaroid on the screen now for you guys to see, but it was found near a convenience store where a white Toyota cargo van with no windows had been parked, and the witness who found the Polaroid said that the car was driven by a man with a mustache who seemed to be in his early 30s. After this discovery, police set up roadblocks, they did safety checks, but neither the man nor the car was ever found. Police also had the image examined by Polaroid. They said that it had to have been taken after May, which gives it like a 1.5 month time frame in which it could have been taken, because the actual film that it was taken on wasn't available before May. Now, when Tara's mother saw the photo, she actually saw it on A Current Affair because one of her friends had seen it and then shown it to her, and immediately she identified the girl in the photo as Tara. The girl in the Polaroid had a scar on her leg which was identical to one that Tara had in the exact same spot which she had sustained in a car accident, and there was also a book right next to the girl in the photo. The book was called My Sweet Audrina, and Patty said that that was one of Tara's all-time favorite books. At the same time, the family of the boy came forward and identified him as Michael Henley, who was a young boy who disappeared in 1988 while camping in the Zanui Mountains, which was in northwest New Mexico. Now, there was a lot of controversy around this Polaroid. There was so much media coverage around it, and a lot of people thought that maybe it was some kind of sick prank, while other people thought that it actually was Tara in the photo and that maybe it could bring some new leads on the case. Investigators had the image analysed multiple times by multiple different places. They first had it analysed at the Scotland Yard, and they concluded that they were 85% sure that it was Tara and Michael in the photo. Then the Los Alamos National Laboratory analysed it and said they were certain that it wasn't them. The FBI also analysed the photo and their results were inconclusive. So, you know, it's really hard to tell if it is Tara and Michael in the photo because there's so many conflicting reports from different analysis. Obviously, there is no conclusion as to whether or not it is Tara in the photo. Patty definitely thinks that it is, but at the same time, some people have said, you know, that she was a grieving mother who is looking for any sort of clues to show that her daughter was alive or to find any sort of closure, any new leads. One thing they did find from their analysis was that there was a phone number on the book next to Tara in the photo. The only problem was because of the quality of the image, it was just a small Polaroid photo. They weren't able to determine all of the numbers in this. They were able to figure out what a few of the numbers were, but there were like over 350 different possible combinations. Of those 350 possible combinations, there was only 57 lines that were active, but I don't really know if they looked into that or what came of that. Seems like nothing came of it because I couldn't find any information on those 57 numbers. After the picture came out, police canvassed the area to find any possible witnesses who may have seen anything, and they actually did find a few witnesses who said they saw the girl in the photo walking along the beach in Port St. Joe. So I don't know if they saw Tara or if maybe that proves that this girl is fine, whoever she is, and that the photo was some kind of sick joke. Two photos also surfaced in the following years. One was found in June of 1989, which was found in Montecito in California, and it depicted a girl with duct tape over her mouth. Her head also appeared to be resting on a blue striped pillow, which is similar to the Polaroid that I showed you guys earlier. The girl in this image appeared to have a cowlick and a lazy eye, both of which Tara had, and the image was a little bit blurrier, but after seeing it, Patty was also convinced that this was her daughter. Another photo was found in February of 1990. This one showed a girl who was loosely bound with gauze. Her head was also bound with gauze, and she had black glasses, and she was seen sitting next to a man on an Amtrak train. Patty couldn't be sure if this was her daughter or not. She couldn't tell. She said she couldn't rule out the possibility, but it's also been determined that this photo was most likely a prank. Also in 1990, the body of Michael Henley was found, the boy who was identified as the other person in the photo with Tara, and he was found just 10 kilometers away from his campsite in Zuni, and this was about 120 kilometers away from where Tara disappeared. And upon investigation, police determined determined that he had just wandered off and died from exposure to the elements, and so he was ruled out as being the boy in the photo. In turn, this kind of brought into question the analysis of the Scotland Yard, because they were 85% sure that it was Tara and Michael in the photo, and in turn, again, it called into question if that actually was even Tara in the photo, but nothing came again, and the case once again grew cold. Around June of 2009, law enforcement officials in New Mexico finally released some new information on the case. Now, Valencia County Sheriff Reen Rivera came out and publicly stated that he had information which he believed could solve the case. They apparently learned from witnesses that 2 teenage boys had seen her on Highway 47 on her ride and started harassing her. During this time, apparently the boys accidentally hit her and then didn't know what to do, and so they took her from the scene, and then apparently she threatened them and said that she was going to call the police, so they panicked and then they murdered her. Police said they then buried her in the general area of where she was riding her bike, but they've never located her body. And on top of that, no suspects have ever been identified to the public. In October of 2013, they set up a task force to look into the disappearance of Tara, and this task force consisted of 6 different sheriff's departments and even Homeland Security, but despite this, they never made any public statements about any new leads or any new information. There were, however, 22 pages of police reports which were released through public records. The first report is dated 18th of April 1997, and this report actually lists 3 suspects: Lawrence Romero Jr., Dave Silva, and Leroy Chavez. The report also mentioned a possible grave site of a missing female. However, no charges were ever made in relation to the disappearance of Tara Calico. The second report is from April 15th, 2010, and it talks about Officer Jay Blackney and his investigation with the Valencia County Sheriff's Department. Now, the report spoke about a documentary filmmaker who had reportedly gone to school with Tara and was trying to film a documentary on the case. While researching the case, she said that she was followed and she felt she was in danger, and she reported this to the police. In a meeting about this, police mentioned the same 3 suspects as they had mentioned in the previous report, but said that one of them was now deceased. The report also stated that they had received some information regarding a possible location of Tara's body, but they had failed to show up any evidence in the area. Officer Blackney was then told that the FBI had some case files on the case, and so he requested to see them. They allowed him, but said that he was absolutely not allowed to take any images, any copies, or notes on the case files. And after reading this, he met with the documentary filmmaker again, who told him that a hit had actually been put out on Tara. However, this was just kind of hearsay, so he didn't really think too much of it. It was just a little bit of talk that she had heard at bars and parties. After this, on the 23rd of August, Officer Blackney was contacted by a sergeant and a lieutenant of the New Mexico State Police. They told him that the Valencia County Sheriff's Department was on top of the case and that he wasn't allowed to look into it anymore unless they requested that he did so. There was another report from the 6th of November in 2013, and this one talks about an interview with the Valencia County former Sheriff's Deputy Frank Mathola, and this is where it starts to get very interesting. So Frank states that in his time with the Sheriff's Department, he followed up on multiple leads in regards to Tara's disappearance. Among these was an interview with a man named Henry Brown, and he was on his deathbed and wanted to make a confession before he passed away. So Henry stated that shortly after the disappearance, he was in the basement of a man named Lawrence Romero Jr., who I actually spoke about earlier. He said that while he was there, he noticed the body of a young woman who was wrapped in a blue tarp and who was buried in a makeshift grave. He also said that Romero, along with the other 2 boys that I mentioned earlier, Dave Silva and Leroy Chavez, were also there and also participated in the murder of this young girl. He then said that they explained how they knew she rode up and down the highway. They went up, they hit her with the car, then put her in the back of the car before they sodomized and raped her before murdering her. Now, this all happened in some gravel pits, and she actually told them that she was going to send them all to jail, make sure they all went to jail, which is when they panicked and murdered her. So it was a lot like the first report that we read, except without all of these extra details. Now, originally they hid her body body after they murdered her in a bush, but after all of the searches began, they decided to move her into the basement. Henry also told investigators that the men had threatened to kill him if he ever said anything to them, which is why he didn't, and he was telling them now that he was on his deathbed. Now, he also said that the reason the men got away with this is because Romero was actually the sheriff's son, and the sheriff hired Rivera to cover up the whole thing. The witness also said they took Tara's bike to a dump shortly after the murder took place, which is probably why they never discovered the bike. Another witness named Donald Dutcher also came forward to police in 2013 and basically told them the exact same story and saying that the men confessed the exact same thing to him. So Mathola recorded this whole thing, and afterwards he told Sheriff Rivera, which is when Sheriff Rivera told him to bring everything straight to him, and after that, surprise surprise, the recording and the report could not be found. So Mathola followed up on this. He also spoke to an individual who said that Sheriff Rivera was investigating the death of Romero, who actually died via suicide, although some people say that he actually died playing Russian roulette. Anyway, this individual actually said that Romero left a note confessing to his part in this crime, in this murder of Tara Calico. Now, the problem with this is that this note cannot be located. It was never logged into evidence, which definitely points to some sort of police cover-up. Later in the interview, Mathola also said that he and Rivera had gotten into some sort of disagreement or argument, which actually resulted in Mathola resigning. Now, the last report was dated the 6th of August in 2014, and this basically said that the task force was coming to an end due to a lack of evidence and that the case was closed. The last report was dated the 6th of August in 2014, and this basically said that the task force was going to be closing due to a lack of evidence and that the case was closed and it has never officially been solved. Tara's mother Patty and her stepfather John actually stayed in the same house as when Tara disappeared for 15 years, just in case, until eventually they moved to Florida, and unfortunately in 2006 Patty died with no closure on the whereabouts of Tara or what happened. Tara's biological father David also passed away in 2002 when he was beaten and mugged by two men when he was 64 years old. Her stepfather and siblings, however, are still alive, and that is everything for this case. So let me know what you guys think. I definitely think that it was the three boys, Romero, who was the sheriff's son, and I think there was 100% some sort of cover-up, but I would love to hear your opinions down below, and hopefully I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.